Hello, my creative friends, and welcome to another episode of The Daily Prompt. My name is Jeff. I'm here to help you get whatever that idea is in your head and turn it into a screenplay. Now, to actually turn it into a viable screenplay involves you taking consistent, ongoing daily action. I can't promise that is what you'll do if all you're doing is watching these YouTube videos. But what I do want to do is to kickstart your enthusiasm, to kickstart your excitement, to inspire you, to give you tips and ideas and information. So what I want to do today is a Mindset Monday exercise. I want to get you to stop listening to bad advice. Stop listening to bad screenwriting advice. Stop listening to bad life advice. Stop listening to bad creativity advice. Stop listening to people who tell you that there is some right way to do things. There is no right way to do anything. This is a creative endeavor. Storytelling is creative expression. You're creating a story. You're taking the audience on a journey. You're pushing them through ups and downs so that they experience something, so they feel something, so that they're intrigued by something, so they're engaged with something, so that they connect to something, so that they learn something or see something in a new way, or just have a good time on this adventure. At the end of the day, as a storyteller, please do not let anyone tell you that there is some formula that you have to put certain words or certain events on certain pages in order for it to work. This is absolute garbage. There is this thing, this sort of Hollywood structure that everyone says you have to impose upon every screenplay you ever write. There are executives out there, there are story development people out there are assessors out there are people who give you feedback out there, and all they look at every project through this framework. But that is not the reality. At the end of the day, every single one of us has a unique window on our world. We have a different vantage point that comes from our life experience. As a writer, your life is your source material. You have to draw upon what you've experienced, what you've seen, what you've imagined, what you've daydreamed about. You have to take characters on journeys, pull and use all that stuff and weave it into something. Now, trying to shoehorn all of that into some formulaic approach to storytelling is the surest way to kill your unique voice and to destroy and obliterate your one-of-a-kind creativity. There is no such thing as right or wrong. There is only effective or ineffective. If you create a story and it's not having the impact that you wanted it to have on the reader, you need to go back and you need to change that. Now, one of my big frustrations is with the 3-act structure. The 3-act structure is not all bad. The 3-act structure is not wrong. The 3-act structure is simply appropriate for certain kinds of stories and completely inappropriate for other kinds of stories. And anyone who tells you that you have to tell a movie as a 3-act structure story does not really understand the underlying dynamics of all this stuff. If 3-act structure stories were the only kinds of stories that worked, we would not be experiencing a renaissance in television right now, because television is not a 3-act structure medium. In fact, TV commercial television, the old way, prior to cable, prior to the OTT services, all that stuff, was a 4-act structure storytelling mode, method, device, form, right? So if you can have good television that's not 3 acts, it stands to reason that 3-act storytelling is not the only form of storytelling. What you need to do is figure out how to tell the story you're trying to tell. What are you trying to say? What are you trying to do? How many subplots are you trying to weave? How do they interconnect? Do they interconnect? Is that the most effective way to tell your story? At the end of the day, you can't just blindly listen to the advice that's out there. I started doing a YouTube search on screenwriting tips and advice, and I'm watching some of these videos, and I'm like, it is no wonder we couldn't find viable material. It is no wonder fewer than 1 in 1,000 submitted projects are anything that a producer could say yes to. It's no wonder there's so much bad advice out there. Here's the good advice, okay? The good advice is understand, learn, develop your skills, understand the underlying principles involved. It's not about what happens where on which page of your story. It's about the dynamic underneath it, which pushes and pulls the story in a given direction. What I discovered years ago is that the underlying dynamic is the setup-payoff dynamic. Something happens which sets up a situation, puts a character in jeopardy, puts a character in turmoil, maybe sets them up for something wonderful. Something is set up, and then something else either reinforces that setup and grows it even bigger, or pays it off in some way. So when you have holes in your story, it's because you've set something up that you didn't then pay off. Or you pay off something that you never really set up, and we're going, where did that come from? At the end of the day, the reason the 3-act structure is vaunted in the industry is because it's built around setup and payoff. The first act is setup, the final act is payoff, the center act is reinforcement and introducing new setups and new payoffs that ultimately grow and build to this final climax. But it doesn't have to be 3-act structure. It doesn't have to be, it can be a 1-act structure, it can be a 5-act structure, it can be whatever you want it to be as long as you understand the setup payoff dynamic. I made another video series, which I'll link here somewhere to dig a little bit deeper into that idea. But ultimately, look, my point is understanding that there's ideas, there's some information, there's today's power tip, there's today's sort of useful idea that you can go run with. The reality is, if that's all you do is absorb it, watch it and go, that was a really good thing. Let me go watch that other series. That's really good. And that's all you do? We haven't gotten anywhere. At the end of the day, don't just listen to advice. Don't just hear my words. You have to take action on this stuff. Practice. Do something. Implement. Take action every single day. That's the idea behind the daily prompt here, is take action every day. So, if you understand the basic setup payoff idea, the fact that you have to set something up and then you have to pay something off, why not try starting with a short film? Why not starting with just a scene or just 2 scenes, one that sets up, one that pays off. Understand what the basic underlying dynamic is here, what the principle of it is. Then you can start to see how a larger story with more scope has a more broad setup or more details to the setup or various things getting set up. So there's all this expectation being built up and then gets paid off in some way. How do you resolve things? How do you resolve things in an unexpected way that's going to give the audience a specific reaction and interpretation and emotion and feeling and insight into whatever it is that you've set up? If you start practicing with the setup payoff dynamic, your stories are going to get better immediately. But you can't just think about it. You can't just hear it. You have to actually do it. You have to experience it. You have to live it. If you want to be a writer, you have to write. If you have ideas for movies, you have to capture those ideas. You have to take action. So that's what today should be about. Don't just listen to all this advice. Don't listen to people who tell you what to put where on what page. Those people are telling you how to take your idea and shoehorn it into something. That's not how this works. What you need to do is figure out what your idea is and figure out how to expand that idea so that you convey your message and your meaning effectively. That's how you're going to get where you're trying to go. So today's daily action prompt is setup payoff dynamic. Just contemplate that. Think about that in relation to your idea or your story. How can you experiment with setting something up and paying something off? Try it, do it, take some sort of action. If you want to follow through and join me in Fast Screenplay, I would encourage you to do that. But if you want to do it on your own, go ahead and do it on your own. We will see you in the next episode.